Hey guys, Jim Chester here, Chiro Hustle podcast. This is a really exciting episode. I have Mike Saunders. I almost said doctor. It's just quite obvious. I review a lot of chiropractors on this podcast, and I'm coming in from Grand Junction, which is the Grand Valley of the Western Slope of Colorado, which I like to say no one lives. And Mike, where are you coming in from?
Down the hill from you. So I'm in just outside of Denver in Arvada. Love Grand Junction. What a beautiful area. What a beautiful state to live in. So if anyone's not in Colorado, stay out. We need to keep it for just for ourselves. No, just kidding.
Come and visit and take some pictures and take them back home and enjoy Colorado for all it's worth. You know, I'm originally not a Colorado native. I came from Iowa. I like to joke around. I said they left the gate open.
Yep.
And I just ran out. And I ended up here.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. What a beautiful state. I mean, the day we're recording this, it's, like almost 60 degrees and sunny and blue skies. And I know different parts of the country are getting snow and it's just crazy. So, yeah. What a cool part of the country we're in.
Yeah, it's really beautiful out here. And today we've been talking about something really cool, you and I. And past couple of months, we've been brainstorming how to do something really cool for the chiropractic profession. And just to let everybody know out there, we are the fastest growing chiropractic podcast on planet Earth. And it's really exciting what we have in store for them. Right, Mike?
Yeah, it is. And you're just watching what you do. And, hustle is an interesting word that you chose because you are the epitome of hustle, and I think that probably you need to think of, just, okay, how can I hustle? And then you got to have balance too, right? But yeah, you're the epitome of hustle. And we started talking, and just recently we were like, man, we met like 3 years ago, and we just been batting around some ideas, and I've been watching what you've been doing, and just the topic came up where we put together something, and it just came together, and that's what we're going to talk about today. So at the very end of this talk, I'm going to show you exactly what this is and why it would benefit doctors of chiropractic in their business, because as you can see, my brand is the Authority Positioning Coach. So I just kind of want to tell you a little bit about what that is, and then I've prepared a few slides, and I'm going to rather than just saying, you should do this, here's what you should do. Well, why? Right? I mean, in business, and I don't care if you're a plumber or a chiropractor, people don't just buy something right off the bat. They've got to understand it. So we have to be an educator and an advocate for our target audience, which then bolsters our brand because people know us, like us, trust us. And I think that gets so hard to do because we know what we do and we're like, just come in and just do it. And I think that's where people need to take that mentality of, how can I be seen as that authoritative, influential expert? Because let me just get this out, because I think this is something interesting. A lot of business owners don't think they're the expert because, I just run this business. Just because you have DC after your name, that's wonderful. And you are an expert and you're elevated way above most other people, but you have competitors. So what we're talking about today is not being an expert by or developing expertise that way. It's separating yourself from the other choices your patients have because you've got a competitor down the street from you probably. So that's what's so important, is in the mind of the audience, your next dinner seminar, your next prospective patient that walks in your door, what is going to make them trust and believe and see you as that credible source? And I know, Jim, you've been boots on the ground and rubbing elbows with people at doing some screenings and over the years. And you've got to realize, and I would love to get your thoughts too on this before we start, looking at a couple slides. What do you see about how do you talk up a chiropractic practice to make sure that prospective patient understands that it's not just some hack, it's someone that is not only a doctor of chiropractic, but someone that should be trusted?
That's a great question, Mike. And, it's really an honor for me to go out there and serve the chiropractic profession, because I know that I was soul searching for something I can believe in 100%. And as I went through this whole process of finding out what I wanted to devote my interest and intelligence to and my energy to and my hustle to, it was the chiropractic understanding of getting people healthy naturally. And I thought that we lived in a very confused society where people trust an outside-in approach always, because that's what we've been spoon-fed since day one, that we have to have something that's from outside of us to get us better. Where the chiropractor, they understand that the body needs nothing extra in it. It simply needs no interference. So really, they're brain doctors and nervous system doctors more than bone doctors.
Yeah.
And I think that once you understand that as a communicator, and that's back to what you were saying, is just because you get the DC after your name doesn't mean that you're a dynamic communicator. And
Ooh,
you
that's a
know,
good one.
and I think that most people don't realize that, communication is something that you hone. It's something that you learn. Like I was mentioning to you the other day, like, listening to guys that do play by play on sports, those guys have to do 300 like live episodes of like a play by play until they consider themselves like proficient experts.
Yeah.
So when people think about how long it takes to actually become proficient and expert at communicate anything, it's repetition, it's experience, and then it goes back to that thing you're saying: be known, be liked, be trusted. So I think a lot of the tenets of success come from communication, and it comes from authority, it comes from positioning, and it comes from likability. Likability is a huge force. And every time I'd go out there and I'd work with a doc, I would say, I would learn how to communicate to the man. What gives you more trouble, your neck or your back? When I would communicate with a woman, because men are sold on pain. Symptoms sell. When I'd talk to a woman, I would say, who's your family chiropractor? Women are the decision makers for the family, so I would assess the ethos of both of them, and I would, give a communication tactic that would go towards each specific person, knowing where to meet them. And then I would ask them what's going on. They'd do a quick questionnaire with me. I'd ask them if they injured themselves, if they're doing anything to help it, and if they ever considered chiropractic. At that point, I had a streamlined conversation with them. It took me between 3 to 5 minutes, and now they're showing up to that doctor's office because I was the trust factor to tell this person that even if you don't stick around, at least you're going to know more about your health and have somebody that you can trust to take care of you and your family's health.
Yeah, you brought up a huge amount of excellent points, and here's I think a big thing that people miss, which is you have more competitors than what you suspect. And so the chiropractor down the street is a competitor, but do you know what an indirect competitor is? It's not another chiropractor in this scenario. It's inaction. So I'm just going to put up with the pain. A competitor may be, Advil. I don't know. But until you get sick and tired of being sick and tired, now that's when they're going to make a decision and start researching out and seeing who should I choose. And they're going to go to, online. They're going to go to referrals. And what happens, and I've got a couple graphics to show this in some slides here in just a second. You need to be seen out there and not just your website. The problem is you Google around, and of course you're going to see a chiropractor's website. Everybody has a website, hopefully, right? But what are the third-party affirmation websites? And here's another massive takeaway. There's two. I did this whole masterclass workshop on this old 1960s social psychologist. His name was Stanley Milgram. Have you ever heard of him before?
First time.
Okay, this is really interesting, and you might, as I describe this, you might have heard like, oh yeah, I heard this, about the study. Well, he wanted to determine the influence that someone had from a position of authority. So he set up this little, you ever seen those police interrogation rooms where it's the one-way mirror and the person in the room can only, they think they're seeing the mirror, but really the person from the other room is looking in. So they had this test subject on this table and they were strapped to some electrodes and they had a speaker. Someone on the other side was like, okay, here's what I want you to do. I'm going to ask you a series of questions, and when you answer them correctly, then you get a green light. And when you answer them incorrectly, you're going to get a mild shock. So what the Stanley Milgram did was he was in a white lab coat and a clipboard, and he brought in these other people inside the back room, and he told them, see that person over there, you're going to ask them questions, and if they get it right, you push this button to make the green light. If they get it wrong, you push this button, they're going to get a mild shock, and every wrong answer, it gets more and more and more and more. Well, what they didn't know was the guy getting shocked was in on it. There was no shock at all, but every wrong answer, it started amping up and they started acting like they were in horrible pain, right? And here's this person pushing this button going, oh my word, I'm hurting them. And the wrong answer, the next one, they're like hesitating. And Stanley Milgram was going, you must continue. And they're like, okay. And they push the button and they're like, no, I can't do this anymore. And there's like, this is imperative. You must continue. And he just kept going on and on and on. And it turned out that they went leagues past where they assumed, the scientists assumed they would stop at this point, just go, stop, I'm not doing anymore. They went way past that. Why? Because I'm in the position of authority. I've got the lab coat. I've got the clipboard, and I'm telling you this is for a scientific research study. So they're like, okay, I'm pushing the button. The point is, people believe people in a position of authority. There's another kind of a law called Zipf's law. So Milgram's law and Zipf's law. Zipf's law is people are busy and they narrow their choices to the choices on top, meaning you, Jim Chester, referred me to this person, whether it's what, it doesn't matter, a car mechanic. I'm going to trust them because I know you, like you, and trust you. Your patients will do the same thing. Your prospective patients will do the same thing. So people are busy and they're going to narrow their choices to who they see on top and if there's that trust factor. So when you have your expertise and authority out there educating and teaching people, it makes it so much easier because, yes, you can get a referral, but they're still going to Google you. And that's something important. When they put your name and your practice name in Google, what do they see? And this is about the time that people will go, oh, bad reviews, good reviews. Yeah, that's a great piece of it. But what they also want to see is some authority and some teaching out there. So with that Zipf's law, it is, people intentionally narrow their choices to those on top. They're going to go out there, Google, and go, okay, my friend told me this one, and I Googled around, and I saw this, and this. Okay, good. And they're calling. Well, if they saw anything negative or they didn't see enough positive, you don't get the call. So that's what I want to show you. And I prepared a few slides, and let me just pop over here and see if this is now, and you can tell me if you're able to see the slides here in just a second.
Yeah, and I call that page one. I call that page one referral. You have to become referable, and page one referability means that your reputation is stand up, and then people see that you have a referable reputation, like you have down here. All these news outlets that you've been featured on, that's authority positioning. That gives the idea that you're referable, that people can know, like, and trust you because of some of the things that you've been associated with.
You're exactly right. And that's a big piece of what we're going to talk about here. And I'm going to talk quickly because I could make this a 4.5 hour talk, or I could make it about 12 minutes. So we're going to clip right along, and I'm not going to spend a lot of time, but you pointed out something that we're going to talk about and you didn't even know. And for those watching or listening, Jim didn't know this, but that is one of the big pieces of this. It's called an authority trust trigger. And we want to create these things. So look at even the title. How to become an expert. So heuristic authority positioning, and the word heuristic we're going to touch on real quick because that's really important, but in a digital attention span economy. What's the significance of that? You know what that means? We're busy. I get a text message and a Facebook message, and I don't have time for all this 9 hours of research. I just want to find out, who can help me out. So the average attention span is in 2000 was 12 seconds, 2015, 8. Wow. I mean, and I even saw this one article, and I'm sure you can Google it and find it too, but a goldfish has a longer attention span than we do. So
Mike, that means that I'm doing a really good job if I keep my audience's attention for an interview that goes.
I know. It's like mega goldfish. So what it takes to stand out in the marketplace has changed. I mean, we know that, and competition for your prospects' attention is massive. And here's something to think about. When a prospective patient decides to make a choice for a chiropractor in their area, they make things that are conscious and unconscious and emotional. So their conscious mind, they need to make sure that they have some facts and figures. But then that subconscious mind, they look for reasons to justify their position. And here's a great example of like the bandwagon effect. And you can see this on Netflix or Amazon. Hey, here's what's trending now. Here's what's hot. Customers who bought this item also bought. Well, when looking at rational justification, we're going, oh, well, I'm going to watch that movie because it's trending and people are also, a lot of other people are looking at this. And so now this is where that trust trigger comes in. It gives the conscious mind reasons to rationally justify that decision. So that's where these trust triggers come in. And like you mentioned, like the as seen on or as featured in, and you might be featured in your local newspaper, and it might be the whatever Gazette. It doesn't have to be the New York Times. But if your local audience sees that, gets that, and they see you in there, massive, and anything out there. And again, normally we talk to entrepreneurs saying you need to develop your authority because you are an entrepreneur. Well, a doctor of chiropractic, you already have that excellent credible authenticity, but now what we want to do is separate you from the crowd because you've got competitors.
And
So,
the cool thing, Mike, if I can just
sure, yeah.
push in here a second, a lot of times when people do Google searches for any of the docs that are on the Chiro Hustle podcast, we come up on page one because of our SEO strength with the podcast format, because we go out to multiple channels. So anybody that's on our platform, you Google search one of our interview subjects, and you're going to see that person pop up on page one with an attachment to the Chiro Hustle podcast interview.
Well, you've once again stolen a little bit of thunder, and I say that funny because that is an element of what we're going to touch on here toward the end. But that is super strong, and each one of those links. So one of those interviews you're talking about, I call an authority positioning asset, because guess what? If you run a Facebook campaign, how long does that campaign work for you? As long as you keep paying, right? So that asset you're talking about, the link to the Chiro Hustle podcast that the Dr. XYZ was featured on, and their name and their practice name is in the title, and it's now indexed on Google because of your good, solid SEO strategies.
Consistency.
That's an asset. Yeah.
Evergreen content.
Yes. That is a big asset for someone. And when one of their prospective patients Googles them and their practice name, that comes up and I'll guarantee you what happens. They're going to go, all right, you know what? Betty referred me to Doc so-and-so. Ooh, I'm going to listen to that. And they listen to that interview and they're like, oh, he's got kids. Oh, she likes dogs. And now it kind of warms them up. And I call that a pre-frame. And in marketing psychology and NLP, that's called a pre-frame, where you're pre-framing your expertise so that by the time they come in, they're warmed up, they trust you. And boy, that's worth a whole lot. So I wanted to point your attention to these two last bullets here. The person understands my problem, and this person is qualified to solve my problem. When you are being that educator and advocate for your target audience and you're on Chiro Hustle, make sure that you're focusing on a problem. And I would recommend not, my vast chiropractic experience and every problem under the sun. Pick one problem on that episode of Chiro Hustle and focus on that, and focus on what the cause is, and what happens if you don't address it, and what happens if you do, and here's my solution. Because that one laser targeted problem and solution is huge. So when that prospective patient hears that or watches that interview, they realize that you understand the problem, and that's massive, right? And these here, again, we're not going to spend a lot of time on this, but people do want to work with experts. And look at that last point, even if it costs more. So when you think about someone that's like, I just want this pain to go away, do you want to go to someone that's, wet behind the ears, or someone that's been a featured this and a keynote that and the expert in this? You want to go to the expert. Now, that doesn't mean you can charge 200% more, but even if the price is a touch higher, you don't need to get into the price wars. And I'll guarantee you that there's some chiropractors nod their head going, yeah, I've kind of done a little mystery shopping, and I found my competition charges X, and the temptation is there to kind of pop a little bit lower. And that's wrong. You cannot do that, because then your competition goes lower, and then all of a sudden now you're working for minimum wage. So this expert positioning strategy is blue ocean. And if you don't know what blue ocean is, read the book. But basically it's like, my son was watching a shark show the other day, and they were putting some chum in. I'm like, ooh, that's going to really churn up the waters. And that's really what happens. These sharks come in and their ocean goes red because they're fighting over that morsel. Blue ocean is out there, not a ripple on the sea, and it's blue. And that's where you want to be with positioning your practice and your business, where no one else is fighting. You're way up there above the clouds, and it's no churning. So even if it costs more, I think is such a massive piece. So heuristic. This is really awesome. Trust me, I'm an expert. Well, if you're the one saying you're the expert, yeah, and it's this guy, maybe you're not as trustworthy. But check this out. Heuristics is originally a Greek word that means to find. It's a well-known fact that we often rely on experts or authorities' opinions instead of thinking for ourselves. And ultimately, by relying on experts or authorities, we're hitchhiking by means of their intelligence, and we become very susceptible to influence. So I think this heuristic is the way that we know that our patients are making a decision to choose us. Well, if we have a ratty website, a ratty personality and brand personality, right? And all of that is speaking volumes before they even come in to meet with you. You might have the best touch in the world, the best procedure in the world, but they're not going to get within 10 feet of you. So their heuristics, their emotional and their decision-making process is being formulated before they even connect with you. And that's what can turn people away or pull them to you. In marketing, it's called push-pull. You don't want to push people and go, come in by Tuesday or you're going to, no, you want to pull people in to go, you know what? I read that article that doc put out and I heard that interview and he gave me some literature. Now I understand my problem, their solution, their strategy, and it really makes sense. So being able to understand why people are making those decisions and seeing those trust triggers, and that trigger might be as featured in, or it might just be that dinner seminar that you did. And the dinner seminar is not, please come in and buy from me. It's teaching, right? And I know you've been involved in those types of things, but when the vibe from a teaching event is so much different than a pitch fest, right?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
So you want to make it easy for others to call you an expert. Simple. How do we do that? It's being an educator and advocate. We empathize, we give value, we solve problems, we deliver results. You know, all these are obvious. You nod your head, yep, okay, of course, that makes sense. How about this? Do these people call themselves experts? No. Now, Richard Simmons is kind of old school, but Dave Ramsey and Susie Orman and Tyra Banks, these people are just experts. And why is that? They're educators and advocates for the success of others. So how can we do that? When we stop trying to convince people that we're the expert and focus on being a champion for our customers or prospective patients, we make it easy for them to call us the expert. And it's kind of the unsaid thing. You don't need to be pushy. You just need to be there and be present and understand and empathizing. And you can display your empathy by just understanding the problem and describing the solution. Right. And there's so much education that goes into having someone understand enough to say, let's move forward. And that's when you step into your authority. I think that's a big, big mindset shift that a lot of people don't realize. You start convincing yourself the more you see the results from your efforts, your patients. Right. This is a really cool quote. I love this. There's only one thing in life worse than being talked about, and that's not being talked about at all. You know, and a lot of times people don't realize this and they're like, you know, let's give them something to talk about. The old Bonnie Raitt song back in the day. You need to have people out there talking about you. That's word of mouth referrals. That's external third party. That's yourself. That's getting the word out. And that's massive to keep in mind. An authority positioning portfolio is what you should be developing. In fact, I just received federal trademark for that phrase, authority positioning portfolio. And in this presentation, we'll call it the Dave Ramsey effect. Because you look at this, and if he wrote that book and he's got a bestseller and he's got his podcast and he's on this, he's all over the place. And people don't need to go, should I trust Dave Ramsey? Now, you might like him or hate him, but people do. If you were to do a poll, Dave Ramsey's known for giving financial advice, good financial advice. And that's because he's out there and he's been doing it consistently. And guess what? If he did one radio show and called it good and said, I'm an expert, nope. Right? And don't you find, even in your podcast, you did not get that momentum episode 1. Probably not episode 21, right?
No, it took me some time to actually position myself and become the most consistent in the marketplace and become the go-to for the Chiro Hustle or for the chiropractic information. And I think that's what sets us apart from every other podcast that's out there is we are kind of in a blue ocean. When I was talking to somebody at the 10X Con, I said what I did, and they're like, I didn't even know that chiropractic profession had a podcast.
Yeah. That's huge.
Mm-hmm.
That's cool. And you know what? You could say, I could ask you, do you teach this strategy and mindset and marketing on your podcast? Yeah, we touch on those things. But so you could be the marketing and mindset coach for all entrepreneurs, coaches, consultants, vice presidents of corporations, and those principles would apply, but way too broad. So you honed in on being very, very good. And I'll bet you that you have introduced one person to another person only because you were so deep into the industry and know it and understand it.
It's happened to me time and time again where I get a chance to connect influencers together because I've
Yeah.
become somebody that knows this industry so darn well
Yeah.
that people have come to me. I mean, I get messages from students like 3 times a week. I get messages from random chiropractors to actually post for them on Facebook to ask a question on their behalf. So I have ghostwriters out there that are saying, "Hey, Jim, your authority is so great. What can you do to get me an answer for my needs? What
Yeah.
EHR software should I use?
Yeah.
Which coaching program should I get involved with? Which seminar should I go to?" And that's just right. I've had a
Yeah.
chance to help so many people because I am entrenched in my niche, which is chiropractic.
And there's a great book that just came out, and I interviewed him for my podcast. His name is Scott Gerber. He wrote the book called Super Connector.
Mm-hmm.
Be a giver, be a super connector, know the industry. And guess what? When you mentioned, the best software for, you don't get a kickback for that.
Heck no.
You're just being helpful. You learned and you researched. You probably interviewed the CEO of that. You know what I'm saying? So I think that it just is such a huge opportunity. So popping back over here, thanks to Dave Ramsey and other celebrity entrepreneurs, being a published author, being interviewed as a guest expert, hosting a radio show, anything of this caliber instantly changes the mind's perception. And that is so, so huge, even without knowing who the person is or reading the book or listening to every single episode, right? So authority recognition is assigned by the conscious mind because of the strong association with celebrity status.
Mm-hmm.
And the problem is too many times people think, well, I can never get featured on CNN or Keynote here or write that book and have it be a New York Times bestseller. You don't have to. So what we're going to show you is some ideas. So why is it powerful? Your subconscious mind is processing, this person is a published author on this subject that I need help with. And it allows their mind to determine your expert status on its own. And this is authority heuristics. It's that thing where people already are thinking about, oh, yeah, you're known for that. Oh, and you don't, and all that hard work is done. You don't need to say, I am the expert in, right? And you could pick an area of specialty within chiropractic, and you need to be that specialist. Well, if you can have some of these authority positioning assets working for you, this authority heuristic is working on your behalf even while you're sleeping, right? It becomes this, silent salesperson. And to me, that is super. One myth that I want to dispel is the fact that so many times people feel like, well, I can't write a 400-page book. I can't, do 200 episodes of a podcast. Check this out. TED Talks are timed precisely at 18 minutes. TV and radio segments, 5 to 10 minutes long. Amazon has a bestseller list dedicated to books that take 15 minutes to read. Look, 15-minute business and money short reads. What? People have short attention spans, and brevity is the soul of wit. Okay, Shakespeare, we've been talking about that for a long time. You ever heard of this book?
Mm-hmm.
Check this out. It's 64 pages long. You know
Well,
what I'm saying? It doesn't need to be, whatever the big 400-page manuals. And all of these books, you might recognize a bunch of these titles. They're less than 100 pages. So when you're thinking about developing and building your authority and your expertise to be seen as that authoritative expert in your field and being influential, don't think that you need to take 6 months off from your practice and now develop all this stuff. It could be short, quick bursts of content. And this is something that a lot of people don't realize. This is the slide that you were stealing my thunder on, but it now confirms. So you made a point, and this confirms what you were saying. There was a focus group study to see this N equals 357. 357 people were asked, when you hear about a company, what's the next thing that you do next? Well, 87% say, I Google them, search online. Well, when you might say, oh, I don't need Facebook ads. I don't need this marketing, program. I don't need authority positioning because I am referred by all my patients word of mouth, and that's where I get my business. Wonderful. But you don't know. The thing that you don't know, the number you cannot quantify is how many people are not calling you or coming in because of what they may or may not have seen, right? So maybe you've got a wonderful reputation, a couple, 3 reviews, 200 reviews, whatever, but somehow, some way out there, if you have this authority status that people are seeing online, like to Jim's point, if a patient of yours refers a friend and they say, go see Dr. So-and-so, and they Google them, because they will, look, 87% of the time, They Google the doctor's name and practice name, and they see the practice's Facebook page. Okay, whatever. Website. Oh, it's a nice looking website. And they see this interview. They see this media piece. Now, all of a sudden, they're listening to that, and they're like, oh, okay, cool. Ooh, I like their personality. Oh, I didn't know that they were from whatever, you know? And so now all of this stuff is working for you in the background. So you might think you don't need it, but you don't know what you're missing out on. Maybe the phone could ring a little bit more. Now, is this going to quadruple your business? No, nobody should say that. But all of these things need to be working for you. And here's just an example. Just to show you a couple of my clients, these are not chiropractors, but to Jim's point, you Google one of your guests on Chiro Hustle, and you're going to see something similar to this. You know, like, oh, their episode is listed on Google. Well, here's a client out in New York. He's a branding specialist, and he does graphic design. And look, here is an interview on Business Innovators Radio, and here's another one, and here's a press release. Oh my word! Someone Googling him is going to go, man, maybe I'm going to listen to 5 minutes of this and look at 2 minutes of that and get that feel rather than just this. This is his website. Websites are wonderful. But when you see all of this, and that helps to bolster that authority. Same thing here, Jesse Miller, you know, boom, boom, boom. All of these things that are what? Above his website. Now, if we Googled it today, whatever day this was, but if we Google it today, maybe the website is up in the middle or above. But the point is, when people see these assets online like this that are third-party proof, like, oh, he was interviewed on, oh, he was featured in, it really is a powerful pre-frame. So this is now to the point where what we started, and I'm done. I've got like this slide and one more or whatever. And then we can kind of wrap up with some final thoughts, because I want your opinion too, Jim. But what
Perfect.
we put our heads together on and said, basically, you didn't say these words, but this is what I perceive from you is I give and I give and I give to the Chiro community. How can I give more or provide something of value, something that is that they can take away and kind of, you know, be substantive? So what I put together, and we're working on this together because I can't do it without you, you can't do it without me, is a special opportunity where we're going to give your authority a boost. So it's a premium authority boost package. And this package is the quickest and easiest way to have powerful authority positioning assets. And remember what I mentioned about assets, it forms your authority positioning portfolio, which is a culmination of all your assets, and they're long-term. And they work for you to fast-track your influence and authority. So your recent interview on Chiro Hustle can be featured in an Amazon best-selling book with full press and media package. So how would you feel if you're like, okay, I got my trifold brochures, they're all glossy and they cost me a couple $3, and you know, I'm handing those out at the last event, you know, outdoor event at this, how many events have you been sweating at, Jim? Right? And you're handing this out, and they're like, oh, they put it in the bag, and they get you their little, you know, all their little giveaways. Well, when they go home and dump that bag out, kind of like, you know, Halloween trick or treat candy, what's going to make them want to retain and keep something? Well, what if there was a book with a full color graphic book, and like this right here? What if this picture down below was you? And what if this book was nice and glossy, and this was in your hand, and it was a paperback book, and you're able to hand that out, and you put a little business card in the front of it where your chapter is featured? And guess what? If you're listening to this and you've been featured on Chiro Hustle, your work is done. This package, if you want to proceed with this and develop your authority and expertise, you don't need to do anything else. You're not writing anything. You're not doing anything else, because Jim just goes, oh, you know that great spotlight piece that we did? That's it. We're going to clean that up, transcribe it, make it all nice and smooth, and focus on you, and get your websites and all your contact information in there. And look at number one. We're going to feature that interview in the next series of expert profiles. And we're going to customize that with your picture and put your featured chapter in the beginning of the book. And you might be in there with, a lawyer out of, Mississippi. It doesn't matter. When you are handing this out to your prospective patients and your patients, and this is something really powerful too. Remember back in the day, I forget how long ago it was, but it was an Amco commercial, and their whole little shtick was, I've got a guy. People want to be able to refer someone. So it's like, oh, I've got a gal. I've got a guy for a chiropractor. And what if you even handed some of your best patients 2 or 3 of these and go, hey, when you're talking to someone, just, hey, give them a copy of my book, let them read it. And it's not the whole book is not focused on you. It's just the interview from Chiro Hustle, and it's in the very beginning, and your picture's on the front, and it acts as that authority positioning piece. Look at that number 2 there. You receive a professional press release announcing your feature in the book. And that optimizes your online authority positioning. How does it do that? Well, Jim already mentioned his good SEO gets that interview on Google. Well, when this press release comes out, that's only about you saying you are featured in this edition of Expert Profiles, and your name and your practice name is in there. That gets Google to index it. And now, boom, there's another authority positioning asset right there for patients to come along and see and go, oh, they were featured in, a book. Interesting. Number 3, custom brand and cover. We touched on that, and your chapter placed in the front. And then you get a link to purchase physical copies and handout at a wholesale rate. Huge, 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 huge. How about this? I don't know the numbers of average, but you can imagine when you do a dinner event and you do a community event or whatever that might be, dinner, lunch, or whatever, come into my office. You have a lot of people RSVP. How many people show up? Jim, do you have a feel? Is it half, 25, 70? I would venture to say probably 50, 60% that RSVP actually show up.
I'm not familiar with those numbers, but I do know some of my marketing numbers. But I think that, the most important thing is just to consider the opportunity to be featured in something that gives you that much more leverage on your personality in the marketplace, which I think, like you said earlier, the marketplace is becoming ever more cluttered with more competition. And we always have to look at the edge of how to set ourselves apart from the other people out there that are doing likewise business.
And I think you would agree that if 10 people, 20 people RSVP, it's not 100% show up rate.
Oh, no, it never is.
So what if I could tell you that using this kind of an approach could increase it, not to 100, not to 80, 90, but what if it bumps up your show up rate to maybe 1 or 2 more people show up than would have? So in your confirmation, hey, reminder, your community dinner event is tomorrow night. Make sure you come. And you put in there, everyone attending is going to also get a copy of, right? And so that could be that hook that gets people in. So I think that's a big piece, because that's just one tidbit for number 5 here, group coaching call. For everyone that's participating in this project, and if you notice there, it's a very small investment. I mean, you spend that much in a week of Facebook ad campaign, but this has to be limited. I can't put many people into this. So it's the first 15. First 15 that claim this will get this, and you'll see the link right below this video. But where we're going to do a group coaching call. So you and me will do another call like this and teach exactly, now that this book is featuring this chiropractor, if you've got this in your hand, what do you do with it? And not only the book, but the press and the mention in the media and the Chiro Hustle link, what can you do with all of these assets to help build your practice? And we're going to do a hour-long masterclass with some takeaway, totally free part of this package, so that everyone that is involved in this will know exactly how to use this authority positioning in their practice. And now I'm just going to pop back over and just go with stop sharing, because we don't need to share anymore. But let me see here. Oh, there we go. So
right.
that's, I think that any chiropractor would realize you can't say, I'm a chiropractor, come see me. So let me educate you a little bit. So that background, I wanted everyone just to realize, yeah, I've heard of influence or X, but this is why. Those points are why that this is so important. So if we had people live on this, we could ask for questions. But Jim, what do you feel that chiropractors from your experience would need to know or should keep in mind when considering something like this to build their practice?
Well, I think, like I mentioned earlier, anything that you can do to set yourself apart from the pack is important. And not saying to add more to your practice, but add more to your personality. Mm-hmm. And I think that when we add more to our personality, we become the go-to in our community. And then, when you say, hey, who do we have as a chiropractor in Westminster, Colorado? You know who you're going to mention. Who do we go to in Grand Junction? Who do we send to the chiropractor? Who's the go-to? I know who I send people to. And I think that that's what this does, is it gives people the opportunity to be that much more featured, and it gives a boost in that person's personality. And it's third party. So it's not just them saying, hey, I'm great and people know me and people like me and look, I can score a touchdown. No, I say, no, that person's great. I know they can take care of you and your family. And yeah, I've seen them score touchdowns because I've talked to the people that they've helped.
And so these tools can just be a fast track or shortcut if you want to think about that. Now, sure, you can take 6 months off. And I interviewed this one guy, and he's a leadership consultant, and he's written multiple books. And I said, hey, what's your process for writing a book? He goes, well, I go to my timeshare at Hawaii for like 2 months. I'm like, okay, well, everyone can do that, even if you could write. But many people can't write a blog post, much less a chapter in a book. So the reason that this is so powerful is that perception of your target audience, your patients that see you as that authority in this book project and mentioned in the media and on that podcast. All of the work is done. You're on Jim's podcast. And if you're not, you're on a phone call or a video, and it's simple to talk, and I often say this, there's a disconnect between your head and your hands. If I said to you, Jim, I want you to write me 14 pages in the next hour of whatever topic, you might either take a pen and start writing or start typing on the keyboard. And at some point you're like, oh, I don't know. But if I said, Jim, jump on the phone real quick, I'm going to interview you. You could talk for hours and hours and hours because it's what it comes out. And so many times I interview people and they're like, man, we touched on things I would have never dreamed. We went so deep and it just came up and we branched off. So the ability of being able to take what you've already done on Jim's podcast and take that and turn that into everything we've discussed here with the press release and the book, featured chapter in the book, and to be able to use that physical book. And it's in Kindle too. So people can see you on Kindle, but the big power is going to come in having that paperback physical copy to use in your practice. And then the cherry on top is the group coaching call. We'll work together with you to have you know exactly what you can do, have a little blueprint and a checklist and a cheat sheet that you can give to your staff. I hung up with the chiropractor out in New York just 2 days ago, and he was like, how do I get my staff to do this? Because I know I don't have time for it. That's where that blueprint checklist comes in, to be able to have something to go do this, send it out, and I give you every step of the way. So if this is something that resonates with you, that you feel like this would take your practice to the next level, definitely click on the link here provided in this video, because it'll connect you up with the program. It'll connect you with myself, with Jim, and there really is the limit of 15. So we're going to take that and close it down. And then you can wait till the next time we run this if we do it. But I think we're going to see so many great success stories from this. So I'm super excited to work with you and your group on the program.
Yeah, and I can't say enough to you, Mike, and your authority positioning program for offering this opportunity to everybody to work with me and my team, because it really is synergistic. And I think the more people that realize that, the more leverage that they have in the media, the more success they will have long term.
You got it. Hey, thanks for the opportunity, Jim.
All right, we'll catch you on the next one.